Good morning. Welcome. Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Alparslan Bayraktar, International Energy Agency President, IICEC Honorary President Dr. Fatih Birol, Sabancı University President of the Founding Board of Trustees, Güler Sabancı, Sabancı University President Yusuf Leblebici, distinguished speakers of the IICEC conference, distinguished panelists, participants, colleagues, members of the press, welcome all of you.
Efendim Sabancı Üniversitesi
Sabancı University Istanbul International Energy and Climate Center, IICEC, is tackling two important topics, climate and energy. They're organizing activities at certain intervals. Today, again, in the area of energy and climate, we are holding an activity, a conference, which we think you'll be very interested in. Changing Energy Geopolitics of the World, Climate Crisis, and Turkey is the heading of our conference. Very valuable speakers will be talking today. Also, again today, IICEC Turkey Green Hydrogen Future 2023 launch presentation will take place. In the meantime, IICEC's X and LinkedIn accounts will be broadcasting the conference. You may use hashtag IICEC conference on social media. For the welcoming speech, IICEC coordinator Dr. Mehmet Doğan Üçok to the stage to deliver his opening speech. Mr. Minister, International Energy Agency President Dr. Fatih Birol, Sabancı University President of the Founding Board of Trustees Güler Sabancı, distinguished President Yusuf Leblebi, distinguished audience, IICEC's traditional conference series. This is the 15th meeting. Welcome. Around the world, the energy geopolitics is changing. Climate crisis and Turkey are the theme. Today, we're going to talk about energy geopolitics and the climate crisis. The world geopolitics has a lot of definitions in scientific literature. Political science, international relations, and national security topics overlap. When it's the geopolitics of energy, of course, the extension of the topic are getting deeper. Energy security is included in the definition. In that context, energy security is part of national security, economic politics, and foreign policies. They're at a point where they touch one another organically. Within the context of international relations, realists see power as a tool for power. Neoliberal trends usually look at international collaboration. So different perspectives are coming into play. They're all going to be addressed in the conference. For instance, from MIT, Professor Deutsch says energy security is energy manufacturing, distribution, and usage. They are the military extensions of it. So energy politics is a link between national security and international politics. Economic and political and military axes are what they're based on. This perspective reflects the realistic theory and the area of collaboration are very important for countries. The world is changing fast. The pandemic changed our lives rapidly. Following that Russia-Ukraine war and in the Middle East, the fast developing bitter war setting. Uncertainty is on the rise. Areas of prediction are narrowing down. So based on new information, the analyses are being reshaped minute by minute. Energy and geopolitical interaction is always impacted by this change. Dr. Fatih Birol has said in our previous activity that in the past, energy determined geopolitics. Today, geopolitics determines energy. And these reflect and emphasize the importance of this change. We're going to be listening to the rest of it from him. Will there be a return where energy determines geopolitics? We'll see. Under the shadow of geopolitical balance, there is now the climate crisis globally. Approximately 14 years ago, when we established IICEC, one of the purposes of IICEC was, as Ms. Güler Sabancı says, to draw attention to the issue of climate crisis and form awareness about this so that the importance of this topic can be conveyed to the public. Until today, the situation about climate change is becoming more emergent every day. Within this context, IICEC is continuing its work. As I conclude my speech, thank you very much on behalf of IICEC for your participation and your contribution. I wish for a productive conference. President of the Founding Board of Trustees of Sabancı University, I would like to invite her to the podium. My respects. Yes, Mr. Minister, Dr. Alparslan Bayraktar. Dr. Fatih Birol, Sabancı University President, Mr. Yusuf Leblebici, distinguished stakeholders of the world of energy and climate, distinguished participants. Yes, Sabancı University, Istanbul International Energy and Climate Center, IICEC, in the areas of climate and energy, we are going to be evaluating critical developments. Dr. Fatih Birol, Mr. Minister, and other valuable speakers from the sector are participating, and we're going to be addressing the changing energy geopolitics in the world, climate crisis in Turkey. We're happy to be hosting you in Sabancı Center. Recently, in the energy sector and climate, we've been witnessing important developments. And Doğan did a wonderful introduction. Throughout 2023, geopolitical developments, energy security search, climate crisis, and opportunities about clean energy. These are emerging headings on the world agenda. COP28 meetings also around a critical agenda. They have been multilateral developments. Soon we're going to be listening to the latest developments, and we're going to be having a perspective of the future, a tradition of IICEC conferences. We'll have the privilege to listen to those from Dr. Fatih. Under his leadership, International Energy Agency guides energy security and contributes to the struggle against climate crisis. Fatih Bey, as you know, this year has been shown among the climate leaders of Time 100. I was there 2 weeks ago in Elysee Palace. There was a special ceremony where Dr. Birol was honored with Légion d'honneur of France. The French president presented this to him. I would like to congratulate him again, and on behalf of all of us, I would like to say once again how proud of him I am. As the honorary president, yes, as the honorary president for 14 years, he has been contributing to the development and vision of IICEC. I would like to thank him once again for this. Mr. Minister is with us today, and he has such a busy agenda, in spite of which Mr. Minister agreed to be with you. We would like to thank him once again, and to the delegation of the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources and his special team are here. I would like to thank all participants from the Ministry of Energy. Welcome. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Minister will relate the striking growth of our energy growth for 20 years. My journey lasted 20 years as well, Mr. Minister, so we've known each other since then. The entry of Sabancı Group into energy, it's been 20 years. Also, IICEC as well, from the moments of its inception, Mr. Minister has always supported it. In the energy demand of our country, we have a strong potential. Europe's largest and one of the world's most dynamic energy sectors with what has been done in the last 20 years. And recently, in energy, in many areas, our Ministry of Energy and the private sector have taken important steps. For instance, renewable energy installment power. We are in a position as one of the leaders of Europe. Electrification, strong development are emerging into the foreground. In energy efficiency, there's growing awareness and new business models are being developed. In order to take these even further, we have the strong potential. Under the leadership of our Mr. Minister and under his vision, energy security, efficiency, and competition, and together with a net zero target, comprehensive technology-focused energy transformation, important targets are there as a country for us. For being with us today together, for sharing with us with energy strategies and policies. We'd like to thank him up front. For other speakers as well, thank them for sharing their perspectives with us in critical energy issues. Distinguished guests, as you know, at Sabancı University, we have been giving priority to the issues of energy and climate for a long time. IICEC, as you heard, has been established 14 years ago. We established it as an energy and climate center. These two topics are inseparable. That was the vision. And developments around the world and the point at which we are today are confirming these. IICEC is within the model that I define as a success triangle: public, private sector, and academia for supporting a cleaner and more secure energy future. Just like today, we're continuing to bring stakeholders together. About these goals in the establishment of IICEC, seeing that IICEC is increasing its contributions make me happy. As you know, IICEC in 2020 did a first. Türkiye energy landscape work was published. This was done by the sector stakeholders. In 2021 and 22, Turkey electrical vehicles landscape and Turkey renewable landscape work has been published. Again, as a first in Turkey, this has been shared with the public. IICEC this year as well, within the scope of their analytical project series, has focused on green hydrogen, which we know will have more of a room in the future. And the first study has been done, report has been published, Turkey's green hydrogen future. Again, as a first in Turkey, it's analytical and holistic in its perspective. Multi-dimensional dynamics, opportunities, and a participatory approach with the sector stakeholders. Soon, the critical findings and suggestions of this work will be conveyed. Distinguished participants, science-based approaches, and collaboration with the business world. It's important to create value from these. This is one of the most critical success factors in our day. We believe in this. We observe this to be the case. In this perspective, IICEC is a leading model and center in Turkey. IICEC brings together institutions that are leaders in their areas, and with a common wisdom, they are supporting the future of energy. That is why, before I conclude, I would like to mention the valuable supporters of IICEC: Alçe Holding, Boristan EMBD, BP, Enerjisa, Eren Holding, ING Bank, Sanko Energy, Shell, Sokar, and Zorlu Energy. The growth of IICEC activities At the point of deepening and expanding, they have been lending continuous support. I'd like to thank each and every one of them separately. We have departed on a long-term journey, and with those supporters, we've been working together for 14 years. For a more sustainable energy future, they will give support, and this conference will give support and contribution to our work. And once again, I would like to thank Mr. Minister, Mr. Fatih Birol, and all participants on behalf of Sabancı University. We would like to thank Güler Sabancı for her speech. As she has said herself, we're leaving 2023 behind, and geopolitical balances came into the foreground. Secure energy, clean energy, and the climate issue have emerged into the foreground this year. Now, keynote speaker of the conference, International Energy Agency President, IICEC Honorary President, Dr. Fatih Birol, to the podium, please. He has received a Légion d'honneur from France, and we would like to once again congratulate him. Thank you. Ms. Güler Sabancı, dear Güler Hanım, thank you very much for the opening speech, and you have laid down a beautiful framework for this. It's a great privilege for me, for us. Mr. Minister, we've known one another for years, but for the first time with you as the minister, we have come face to face. You have honored us with your presence. Mr. President, distinguished friends, I greet all of you with respect. Today, in my speech today, here's what I thought. First, world energy markets. What's happening currently? Fossil fuels, clean energy. I would like to discuss these with you for a bit. Second, something that we keep missing out, climate. In fact, when we look at economic topics, we always miss out on an important point, which is the change in China. Well, because it's impacting a lot of things, the change in China, I'm going to be addressing a few issues about that. Third, as Güler Hanım has also said, several weeks ago in Dubai, there was the World Climate Summit, which concerns energy closely, and I would like to talk about that a bit. And a small point, the carbon adjustment at the border by EU. What exactly is this? Why don't we talk more about this topic? I have some thoughts on that, and I would like to share those with you. Now, we come together here every year at least once, and here's what I can tell you. Energy. Most of us are involved in energy every day. Our job, our hobby. For some of us, it's a passion. Governments, people, companies around the world, on their agenda, energy keeps being pushed upwards. It was always important, but it's becoming even more important. There are good reasons for this, and then there are not so good reasons for it. Good reasons, we all know. Energy is the driving force of economic growth. Energy and energy prices are very important in competition among countries. But apart from that, we have seen in the last 2 years Russia-Ukraine war, during this war, and currently in the developments of the Middle East, energy, again, is one of the important topics. It's influencing and being influenced, energy. I will try to explain again, but this new energy, clean energy technologies, energy and geopolitics are totally interconnected. Energy security is a very serious topic in oil, natural gas, and what we call critical issues. Clean energy technologies such as lithium, cobalt, and critical minerals. Again, this is a very important topic, and geopolitics and energy are interrelated, as Doğan Bey has said. And lastly, when we say climate crisis, energy and climate, you cannot separate those two, because what causes climate crises, the 80% of these emissions come from the energy sector. So no matter how you look at it, energy is an important subject on the agenda of people.
Baktığımız zaman şu
As we regard the energy markets, let me start with oil. The prices are around $80, and for the following months and the year ahead, or even further, as we regard the following term, we see a significant trend, which is namely as follows. There will be a slowdown in the oil demand as we compare it with the previous trends. And there are two reasons behind this. I will tell you what these reasons are. One is the development in China, and number two is the EV, electrical vehicles. Surprisingly enough, electrical vehicles are growing. And at the same time, we see this year that in the US, in Brazil, there is going to be a tremendous increase in oil production. So although there are so many geopolitical developments in the Middle East, the prices are still at this level, and this is the reasoning behind it. And for the following year, for oil exporting countries, unless they provide limitations to their production, oil prices will be at a modest level. Secondly, natural gas. Natural gas is extremely important for Turkey. I am focusing on these topics, but then again, topics related to Turkey will be handled by the distinguished minister, and we will all listen to him. As for natural gas, the natural gas bond between Europe and Russian Federation has been cut, and the biggest client has been lost, and Europe's biggest exporting country was Russia, and all these developments actually brought along less harm than estimated. Now we are going towards winter in Europe, and unless there are big surprises, we will see that Europe will recover and will survive. Think of it this way: till the Ukrainian-Russian war, 2/3 of the European gas would come from the Russian Federation, and in a matter of 2 years, we have started seeing that different routes are being used and different sources are being used in order to procure it. But then again, there have been some repercussions. However, unless there is an unexpected development, we will see that Europe will not encounter any shortages when it comes to natural gas. But my point is, this is very important for us as well. By the year 2025, in a matter of 4 or 5 years, gas markets will encounter tremendous amount of LNG, liquid or liquefied natural gas. We will see from various countries, mainly USA and Qatar, LNG facilities will be making procurement to the markets. Let me put it this way: by the year 2025, and in a matter of 4 or 5 years until 2028, 2029, additional LNG capacity will be higher than the amount will be higher than the previous amount. So it is going to be at least 50% more than the LNG capacity so far. Selling countries are strong in position. The buyers are in a weaker position, so this is going to change. The buyers will have a stronger hand because there is going to be plenty amount of gas available. So both economically and geopolitically, this is going to redefine the balances. So let me briefly touch upon coal. Even if slowly, we see a drop in the use of coal. China and India still continue to use coal, but then again, we see a slight increase, but as we consider the whole world, there seems to be a reduction. And the reason for that is not environment, actually. It's not for the sake of the environment. It's due to the fact that renewable energy is becoming cheaper day by day. As for renewable energy, we discuss this every time we convene. There is a revolution in this domain. This year, all the electrical power stations, more than 80% of the power stations established are for renewable energy. This is tremendous. Solar mainly, to be followed by wind and other sources. There is a bit of a nuclear. So the fossil fuel share and the share of coal is diminished, and the cost, renewable energy cost, is actually reduced. This, of course, as this is developed for coal and natural gas, the domain for coal and natural gas seems to be becoming smaller. So the growth in solar is indeed impressive all around the world. While some may think that renewable energy is something for the West or is imposed by the West, actually it doesn't come from the West, it comes from the East, India, China and Brazil. These three countries are developing fast, and as I have mentioned, and I'm sure the distinguished minister will mention, great steps are being taken in that regard. Nuclear energy. I recall that years ago, as we held another IICEC meeting, one of the former ministers, Mr. Yildiz, was present at the meeting, and I was asked about nuclear power, and I had said that nuclear power is indispensable. Nuclear power is a sine qua non for Turkey. When we regard the current energy outlook and the geographical position of Turkey, it is indispensable, I had said. And in the last 2 years around the world, I would say in the last 1.5 years, there seems to be a return to nuclear power quite fast. After the most recent accident, Fukushima, there was a reduction. However, fastly, countries like Japan, Korea, China is anyway one of the leading countries when it comes to nuclear. And in Europe, we have Sweden and Finland and France, UK, Canada. Many countries are returning to nuclear, just like it's the case in Turkey. There is a fast return to the nuclear power, and there seems to be an increasing appetite. Here, of course, we see the appetite in three domains. One is for the building up of new power stations with the current technologies, or in countries like USA and Japan and France, they are in an effort to prolong the life cycle of the existing power stations. And number three is for modular reactors. Micro-nuclear power stations are an agenda item. But I can say that nearly in all countries where energy is taken seriously, unless there is a reaction against nuclear power, there is a significant interest. Of course, it's a matter of technology, it's a matter of partners, and it's a matter of conditions under which people will work. Of course, these three elements are extremely important. So regarding the global markets, before I finish this part about the global markets, I always mention one thing. It is most of the time proven to be true. I'd like to say something about electrical cars. Electrical cars are growing so fast that especially in countries where oil is exported, policies are being changed. Manufacture or production policies are being transformed. Let me put it this way. 3 years ago, as we discussed this, we would say that EV business is growing fast, and each, I would say, 1 out of 25 cars sold around the world is an electrical car, 1 out of 25. This year, it is 1 out of 5 that we see an EV. And by the year 2030, with the most conservative assumption, I would say 1 out of 2 cars sold will be electrical car. So there will be serious repercussions like the oil prices, the automotive industry, manufacturers. There will be significant reflections of that. So all these developments in the EV business should be closely monitored, because if we'd like to have a good understanding of the oil market, we have to closely monitor this. There's another topic, maybe we can discuss the details at another meeting. Households and heating systems of the households. There is a significant transformation. Heat pumps are on the rise, and we see that the current natural gas or oil-based heating systems will be replaced with electrical systems in Europe, in China, Japan, and USA. This is growing fast, and we can always discuss it at another setting. So, if I'm to wrap up, in the energy markets, when it comes to fossil fuel, we see a slowdown in the growth. When it comes to clean energies, renewable energy, and nuclear, we see a fast increase. The trend is upwards. Now, let me discuss China a little bit. Why would I want to do that? Because in the last decade, all the developments that are encountered in China, if companies or countries missed the developments in China, they also have been missing some opportunities. So let me now share with you some insights about the next 10 years. When we consider the last 10 years, Chinese economy grew by 6% approximately. That's amazing. In the oil markets, in the last decade again, the demand increased. 2/3 of the increase came from China, and 1/3 rest of the world. When it comes to the natural gas, the 1/3 of the demand increase for natural gas came from China only. I can always continue with that because China grew so fast, and the growth of China in economic terms was an energy intensive growth. Everyone comes to agree, China included, everyone comes to agree that Chinese economy is slowing down, and in the next decade Chinese economy will grow by 3.5 or 4% maximum. The economic structure is changing. Energy intensive economy is to be replaced by a lighter economy based on information and technologies, clean technologies. What does that suggest? That suggests that oil and natural gas demand coming from China will come down. This is going to have an impact on many things. Oil demand, natural gas demand on a global scale will be affected. That's the first development about China. The second development is as follows. Currently, China, when we say China, the first thing that comes to mind is all that coal that pollutes the world. Well, there is another dimension to it. Currently, China by far is the world champion for clean technologies, clean energy technologies. They're number one in solar, they're number one in wind technologies, they're number one in EV business. Bora Bey is going to tell about that. They are number one in hydrogen and nuclear. So they are growing their clean energy technologies, and currently total clean energy investments, 55% of the investments for clean energy technologies are conducted in China and 45% in the rest of the world. That's where it comes from. Another striking fact I'd like to share with you is as follows. This year, China built renewable energy power stations, and the total amount established in the whole world last year. Only by itself it captured this level. As for EV, 60% of the electrical vehicles are manufactured in China. China used to use it only domestically, but these days they have started exporting it to the rest of the world. You will see it in the upcoming days and years. Unless there are commercial restrictions, you will be seeing many Chinese electrical cars driven on the roads. Why am I saying this? Because the more or the better we understand China, the better we will understand the whole world, because they are an important player when it comes to energy. And clean technologies of China are so much on the forefront, and the reason why they are investing so much for years is due to their economic, technological, and industrial policies that they follow. Currently, USA, Europe, India are joining forces to compete with China. They are launching subsidies and investment programs so that they may compete with China. So from that perspective, China has to be understood in this framework. It always helps to interpret the global developments in different parts of the world. Now, there's something else I'd like to touch upon, the climate summit. Many of us know that in Paris back in 2015, a very important climate summit took place in Paris, and investors for climate have been guided. The most recent COP summit in Dubai, climate summit in Dubai, was as important as the one in Paris. As International Energy Agency, we worked in close collaboration with United Arab Emirates and with Sultan Al Jabbar, who was the president of COP. I had 6 meetings with many governments in order to reach a consensus in different parts of the world. G20 summit, during the G20 summit, we came together with Sultan Al Jabbar, and then in Africa, in Nairobi, during the African summit, we had another meeting, and then we met in New York within the framework of UN General Assembly. The distinguished ambassador was there along with many other countries, and finally we came together and held a meeting in Dubai, during which 55 countries came together. And this actually contributed to the formation of the declaration, the concluding declaration. In order for the summit to be classified as a successful summit, there are 5 conditions. 3.5 conditions out of these 5 conditions have found themselves a place in the final declaration. These have been mentioned in the declaration, and this declaration has been undersigned by 200 countries. What are these? Let me mention some of those.
All countries around the world by 2030 will increase threefold the energy renewability capacity around the world. Second, again, all countries around the world, they committed to increasing twofold the energy efficiency. Again, all countries, methane and harmful gas as harmful as carbon dioxide, they agreed to bring it down to 0. And again, another important topic, maybe one of the most important, countries they took a decision to move away from fossil fuels, which, of course, is the reason for big environmental disasters, fossil fuels. Of course, how will these impact our daily lives? These are wonderful decisions, but as some people are saying accurately, I mean, these are not binding legally. Nobody's going to sue you because you couldn't increase your energy efficiency threefold, or you could not reach your goal in energy efficiency. Plus, these are global targets. We don't know to what extent each and every country will have to commit, but there's the following side. Now, countries around the world or companies, people are going to ask, you have ratified this, your country has ratified this, but you're doing another thing. So people have a document now, at least. 200 countries have ratified this, just like the Paris document. And I think in the issue of moving away fossil fuels, this is going to be accelerating that type of work. Of course, fossil fuels, I need to say, we're not going to be moving away from these tomorrow. This will happen over time, but if living conditions and climate around the world, if we want a world that is close to what we have today, there will be significant climate crises, forest fires, floods, drought. If we don't want these anymore, we should, on a regular basis, move away from fossil fuels and transition to clean fuels. So 200 countries stated this to be what they wanted. And I think in the coming months and years, this will be a Damocles sword on many energy companies around the world. And the decisions they have taken or they're going to take, especially investment decisions, will be evaluated based on this. The last topic, and then if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those, and then we'll be listening to our minister altogether. EU about the Green Deal within the framework of that program has the following mission. Carbon adjustment at the border mechanism. To abbreviate and call it carbon tax, I don't think we'll be misinterpreting the situation. And this has 2 reasons if we ask them why they're doing this. They want to protect their own industrialists because in Europe there's a certain carbon price, 70 75 euros currently, but they say, for instance, from China or here and there, when I import iron and steel, my own producer is in a difficult situation. It's a disadvantage as a cost. So the first reason is this. Second reason is many countries around the world, they want to uphold a model for them transitioning to clean energy. Now, what exactly is this? From any given country, if you want to sell iron and steel, fertilizer, aluminum, electricity, cement, if you're going to export this to EU from any given country, Europe looks to see, while producing iron and steel or cement, what is your carbon footprint? If this is high, there are certain procedures. They multiply it with their own carbon prices, and they increase the price of the cement or iron and steel that you're selling. And this is the disadvantage of the exporting countries cost-wise, especially if in that country these iron and steel and cement and aluminum, if they have not been manufactured with clean energy technologies. Now, is this fair, unfair? Let's leave this aside and talk about the reality of it. Those of you who have been to Brussels these days, you'll see Chinese and Indian negotiators, because this law will come into effect in January 2026. And Chinese and Indians and many countries will be negatively impacted from this trade-wise, and for this negotiations, discussions are kicking in. Exemptions, postponements, whatever, these are now coming into play for us. This is very important, I think. We are Europe's 6th trade partner. As far as I know, Europe is our number one. Europe is the region that we export to the most, close to 50% and more than $100 billion worth of exports. I know there's work being done on this. Minister of Finance and I talked about this recently. The sector is working on it, I know, but I think with all the stakeholders, we should be aware of this. This is a very important topic for our country. I think this has to be known, so I wanted to share this with you. I'm going to conclude now. Just like you, I am also impatiently waiting for what Mr. Minister has to say. But maybe before I finish, when you look around the world, there are many countries. Each country has their own energy policy, energy presence, energy priorities. But no country is an island, is no energy island. Everybody is impacted by one another. This may be through energy prices, through laws that are being passed, through technological development. So therefore, for always keeping abreast of the developments around the world is important. So I tried to share with you some important headings from around the world. Thank you. Now, I think we have time for 3 questions. Whom do we want to start with? Yes, of course, they have to speak into a microphone for us to hear and translate. I'm sorry, that microphone is not working. I'm sorry.
Yok, size bir tane.
You have one. No, you have the right to ask one question, not three. Electrical vehicles, as far as carbon dioxide release, they are becoming more widespread for the environment, but there are different environmental impacts. So, how environmentalist would that be? And the fact that China is dominating this market, especially on the USA and Europe, about fossil fuel vehicles, they have lagged behind. Production, peripheral industries, services, for close to a century now, there is this established infrastructure and labor force. This infrastructure and labor force, its transformation, employees being equipped with new competencies, will this be able to keep up with the pace of this development? And how will this impact sustainability socioeconomically? It's not just environment. Sustainability is important socioeconomically as well. So what sort of an impact will this have? Yes, your question? If something is being asked, we can't hear it, sorry. Mr. Minister, hello, Sümeyra Önder. COP28 panel said fossil fuels are a bit lower currently. However, they had the footnote, COP29 Azerbaijan panel. There, fossil fuels will be used more than wind energy and solar energy, they said. What do you think about this? Any other question? Mr. Birol, you never talked about India, whereas depending on what we've been reading, the development rate of India is exceeding China currently. The population has already exceeded China. Maybe we should take note of that as well. Okay, these three questions I'll try to answer right away. Now, electrical vehicles in China. Their driving force, main driving force in China is not climate change. I'm going to come to that, but China's electrical vehicles are a strategic priority. The main reason for this is oil supply security. Oil supply security. In order to decrease their dependency on oil is the reason China gave priority to these cars. And that's why it's growing so fast and why there is a weakening on demand on the part of China. China saw this as an industrial branch, and you're going to see, I won't name names, but many well-known automotive manufacturers, they're going to be head-to-head with them, China, just like Japan. Automotive manufacturers came into play and they achieved important things. So China is going to be that. And also, I should say, there's something China is doing, and they're not just doing this at home, but doing these, they're reducing costs, so they are actually servicing the world through this. Solar panels, if they're so cheap today, China has contributed greatly to this fact. We're all benefiting from that. And electrical vehicles, their impact on the environment. There are different works conducted regarding this, but the majority of the work is if a country is not obtaining power from fossil fuels to a great extent, so it is something good for the environment, is the stance most people have. And what you said, not just in electrical vehicles, in many areas, the energy world dominated by fossil fuels, while transitioning to the world of clean energy, there will be big socioeconomic problems, which are already happening anyway. And this, some countries, for instance, in Europe, may be causing some extraordinary election outcomes. It's going to be a painful transition. For instance, internal combustion engines. A worker, having worked in this area for years, taking him, and you can't find him for electrical cars. You got to find someone who's qualified to do that. So this person will lose their job. So what are you going to do about that? Or coal mines in Europe, in US, coal mines are being closed down one after the other, and there are thousands of workers working there. The gentleman talked about India. Currently in India, the coal sector, the mining and the transportation of coal is a big business in India. They are #1 employer currently. If coal is over, if you prohibit coal tomorrow, then there will be a big employment problem. These are significant socioeconomic problems. So the thing we call energy transformation is not just related to energy. It has to do with employment, with finance, with socioeconomic topics. Therefore, for instance, in International Energy Agency, we established a new commission. The largest workers' federations we brought together. We're working with them to see how we can minimize the negative impact while this transition is taking place. But of course, this will have significant socioeconomic problems, which is inevitable in a way. So this pain of transition we have to minimize. COP28 will be in Azerbaijan. Yes, I'm waiting for it enthusiastically. SOCAR CEO Elçin Bey, I told him as well, I have to meet Ilham Aliyev in a couple of weeks and talk about these issues. Azerbaijan will be a strong leader, bringing everyone together, and we're going to be working together with them. India, gentlemen, you're right. When you look at world economy, India is among the largest countries, but the fastest growing and the one growing as the most strongest among them. There will be a general election in India within 3 months, but everybody expects the status quo to continue. There is stability. And India is right after China about solar, growing very rapidly as a country, and India again, especially in steel and iron industry, they are completing the green transition, be it in electrical vehicles as well. So India is seriously on the agenda, and currently it's right in the middle of the world energy discussions. We know this. India within this year will be, has done the presidency of G20 this year. I think they've had a very successful term. So many socio-political challenges all over the world in spite of that. And 2 more questions and then I'm looking at the ladies, but okay. Okay, we'll take from the lady and then finish off. Are you giving me the word, Fatih Bey? I took the microphone, but I said the person behind you, but okay, so I'm asking my question. Fatih Bey, first of all, welcome to our country, to your country. Neslihan Gökdemir Ağar. First of all, I would like to thank you, Ler Hanım, because in 2001, Mr. Sagıp Sabancı started this energy journey, and she's been executing it perfectly in her holding. She has taken the flag far, far ahead, and today, Enerjisa, thanks to Güler Hanım's dynamism, has become a world company. So first of all, congratulations, and I would like to say welcome to our minister.
Bu hanım neden etti?
You may wonder why this woman is uttering these words. Back in 2001, during which the markets were liberalized, Turkey Energy Forum was organized with a multidisciplinary approach at Sabancı Center and İş Kuleleri Auditorium. I had spent a tremendous amount of effort in order to realize this energy forum, and this was totally based on knowledge and information. As a sister of yours who had been challenged to make all those organizations. Now, at the same time, as a journalist, I have a question for you. Nuclear energy investments of Turkey, how do you evaluate that? Because as far as we can see around the world, the investments made are unique. Unique in the sense that we do not have any other investments resembling to that. So how do you see the future of these technologies? I would kindly ask you to evaluate that. Thank you. Okay, two more attendees in the background. Let's get their question before we finish.
It's not sufficient. I'm sorry, I will ask a question in English. We are talking every time about reduction of CO2 emissions. What is being, going forward, what is being done to prevent or to control emissions and the pollution due to switch to solar energy to batteries? And all. Thank you.
Let's get the third question. Let's proceed with the gentleman there. Yes, please. Yes, please. Let's get your question. Okay, let's go, all ladies. No, I meant the one in the background. Okay, let me respond and then let me conclude. So, nuclear investments are extremely critical because the amount is extremely high. When you do solar energy investments, it's a smaller amount that you start with, but if it's a nuclear energy investment, it is a high amount that you require. And when you decide to undertake a nuclear power investment with a country, you have to work for a decade or so. So the partner country with whom you're going to construct, you have to be quite diligent about how you select the country, the foreign policy of the country, energy policy, energy diversity, all of these have to be considered. Currently, Turkey has started with nuclear energy investments, and hopefully these investments will increase in amount and that there will be other nuclear power stations to be built. Of course, like usual, we have to be quite careful about the selection that we make. As for the next question about fossil fuel emissions, but then again, for solar panels, as solar panels are being manufactured, you're not talking about emissions, you said. Yes, indeed, there is emission, but then again, when compared with the emission related to the direct use of conventional fuel, it's rather limited. It may be minimized, it may even be zeroed. That's very possible, very much possible. Solar panels and solar power is the #1 choice of all countries. East and West, rich and poor, all countries prioritize that. total power stations constructed this year. 60% of total power station production goes for solar power. Let me conclude by the following remark. We have so many veterans among us who have been following closely the energy topics, who are even following these developments longer than I do. There is always the slogan, there was the slogan at least, coal is king. Coal is the king, they used to say. I think that has come to an end. I have changed it, I have modified it by myself. I now say the king has left, solar is here to stay, and solar is the queen. Thank you very much for your attention. We also would like to thank Mr. Birol for his speech, and now, distinguished guests, I would like to kindly invite Dr. Alparslan Bayraktar, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you. Ms. Güler Sabancı, distinguished President of International Energy Agency, Mr. Fatih Birol, distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, and dear guests. I would first of all like to greet you all cordially. It is indeed my pleasure to be together with you on the occasion of this conference. Well, right after the COP28, global energy transformation and the energy policies followed by Turkey will be discussed during today's conference. I would also like to refer to the COP summit and how this conference of parties went. I'd like to briefly touch upon that. One of the most important topics was about exit from coal or exit from hydrocarbons altogether. That was discussed in Dubai. And until the final hours, our approach towards coal, the distinguished President Sultan Jabbir followed all the points. We had intensive talks and discussions, and as Fatih Bey mentions, all countries are actually forcing their limits as they undertook the negotiations. But then again, at COP28, at the end of the day, exit from coal or exit from hydrocarbons were not mentioned in the end. Well, mostly this is due to supply concern, supply security concern, and developing countries such as Turkey have some developmental rights and developmental targets, and they have been a determining factor. We have witnessed that. And on the other hand, there has been yet another important development. Nuclear power is in a way reborn. We are witnessing a rebirth of the nuclear power because installed capacity by the year 2050 is planned to be multiplied by 3 times. That's quite significant. As this initiative has been made and as this declaration has been published, we will see remarkable developments. By the year 2030, renewable energy will be multiplied by 3 times, and energy efficiency improvements will be taken from 2% up to 4%. This is yet another important milestone, and this has been mentioned during the COP summit in Dubai. There was yet another element, critical minerals, which are critical for energy. On the occasion of COP28, these precious minerals have been included in the global agenda. Of course, electrification, heat pumps, electrical mobility, change and transformation have been among the other topics discussed and highlighted. In order to do it all, there is need for financing, technology and capacity use. And these have to be leveraged to the required level so that this inevitable transformation is undertaken. Well, of course, under the name of climate financing, there is $90 million. That's still insufficient. We still have not reached $100 billion. But at the same time, we know that in order for the world to have a sustainable energy transformation, $6 trillion is required in order to realize that, yeah, well, there are many restrictions ahead of us and there are many areas for further development. And because of all this, as Turkey, what we say is that a successful energy transformation requires a smart energy transformation policy. And we add, this transformation has to be rational. This transformation has to be inclusive, transparent, smart, and digital. And in this sense, as we conduct our energy policies, we never give concessions from energy security. We contribute to global energy diversity. We reduce our dependency, external dependency, and we also have a net zero target. Our industry is growing, our population is on the rise, urbanization is on the rise, mobility needs and requirements are changing. We're developing, our welfare level is increasing, and our energy requirement is on the rise. Yet another important trend in line with the global developments, I can say that energy requirement increases and the share of electricity increases. As we consider the last 21 years, as for energy intensity, we have made a reduction of 30%. Efficiency is on the rise, but still energy demand has been multiplied by 2 times. And in the next 50 years, this is going to be multiplied yet again. In the last 20 years, the demand for natural gas has been increased, has been multiplied by 3 times as well. Energy requirement and electricity requirement in the next few years will continue to increase. That's how we adopt our plans, and supply security is the #1 topic to be covered, both for resources perspective and technology perspective. We see that being local, localization is key, especially the fragile structure and the fractures on the supply chain force us to see this as an essential item. I'd like to share with you an important figure on the occasion of this conference. International balance figures have been published. As you know, one of the basic problems of Turkey is current deficit. All macroeconomic issues that we deal with has to do with energy importation and energy dependency. This has been at around 70% or more during certain years. For last year, 2022, energy dependency has been 67.8, but still we have a long way to go. We still have to continue. Energy plan, national energy plan requires that in the next 30 years we will get rid of energy dependency and become a net zero country. Of course, we know how ambitious this target is. We know how challenging this target is and the road ahead. All sectors, all domains of the economy require a radical transformation to ensure that. Because countries such as Turkey, developing countries such as Turkey, will have to do a lot in order to ensure that all this increasing demand is met in a competitive manner, and the load is indeed significant. In order for us to realize this energy transformation, we have to make sure that we utilize renewable energy potential and take it to the maximum level and include it in our energy mix. Turkey is #5 in Europe, #12 on a global scale when it comes to solar and wind. And we have, in the last 15-20 years, we started with 0 and made it up to 12,000 for wind. And for the upcoming period, we set even a more ambitious target. We have to change our way of doing business with the sector, with all the institutions. We have to realize these targets, and that requires a different mindset. in energy, in transportation, in the industry, in the buildings, in all domains of the economy, energy efficiency has to be incentivized. Nuclear energy in our energy mix has to be included in the energy mix, energy basket, and natural gas has to be used as a transitional resource. Hydrocarbon resources still have a share of 92%. We have 92% dependency and natural gas dependency. This should certainly be replaced with our own resources as natural gas is incentivized. Another indispensable another indispensable element is the transmission network. Transmission network is key, and this has to be subject to a significant transformation. Infrastructures have to be revised. Energy infrastructures have to be revised and empowered. Hydrogen, critical mines, storage, digitalization technologies have to be invested. Energy systems altogether have to be subject to technological developments, and they have to be renewed and refurbished. And of course, access to international finance and international collaboration have to be prioritized as well. Distinguished guests, distinguished participants, by the year 2035, the requirement will be more than 500 terabyte, and as we meet this demand, the share of renewable energy in the total amount will be 55%, and it will be 65% in the installed capacity. And in line with these targets, I had already disclosed this with the public, by the year 2035, in the next 12 years, 3,500 solar, 1,500 wind power stations have to become operational so that we meet our target. And we also have 5,000 megawatt capacity for wind above the sea. Well, of course, as I have mentioned, this may only be possible in the next 15 years. 22,000 megawatt of a capacity to be increased up to 80,000 megawatts. In order to realize this, we have to join forces. Financial institutions, energy sector, all relevant bodies, authorities. We as the Ministry of Energy undertake an important coordination work, and we are ready and available to do that. We will be clearing the path for our investors. But of course, the investors have an important role to play as well, distinguished guests. When it comes to the investors, many investors would like to invest in the renewables, are confronted with an issue of capacity, like transmission and distribution capacities. I would like to share with you some striking figures. As of now, allocated capacity for solar and wind, 10,000 megawatt license capacity allocation has been made. This is available to the investors. 26,000 megawatt is available to the industrialists in order to meet their own needs, and they have the permits in order to allocate capacity. Border carbon adjustment as the industrialists switch to carbon-free energy. 26,000 megawatts. This is actually more than the installed capacity that we realized in 20 plus years. 500 megawatt of IICEC capacity work is underway. 33,000 renewables with storage. So when you add them all, 76,000 megawatt of capacity is allocated. So this capacity, half of this capacity is to become operational in the next 5 years, and that's going to be an additional power. So joining forces, industrialists, finance institutions, relevant bodies, authorities, permits, other authorities from which we get approvals from forestry, etc. All these permits have to be given so that we realize all these investments as fast as possible. Again, in order for sustainable energy transformation, we should be empowering the power stations, power networks. As we reinforce that, we have to enhance interconnection with the neighbors, and especially for renewables, we have to attach importance to that mega transmission system, green transmission system I'm talking about, and for the next 7-8 years, $10 billion of investment should be made and will be made by ourselves. Well, of course, when it comes to energy dependency, that's a big issue, that's a big difficulty. In order to reduce this, oil and gas search and drilling will be intensified in the following period.
As you know, Sakarya natural gas field that we have discovered, we are about to go into manufacturing, and gas is being given to BOTAŞ currently, but 10 million cubic meters per day now, and later on plateau level, we need to increase to 40 million cubic meters, 16 billion cubic meters of gas. That's our target within 5 years. On the other hand, you know, in Gabar, in 2022, we discovered fields and we started producing oil, 30,000 barrels a day currently, and in 2024, we aim for 100,000 barrels a day. As such, Turkey will become a country which produces 200,000 barrels a day. We still have a lot of ground to cover. It will still continue the need for oil around Turkey, but 1 million barrel of daily need for our own country, we need to make this come true. Nuclear energy portfolio, we're spending efforts in Akkuyu. 4 reactors are currently being constructed, the largest nuclear construction site in the world. 4 reactors being constructed at the same time. Hopefully within the next 1 year, we'll be commissioning the first reactor. Especially in COP28, within the scope of the target, Turkey will have 20,000 megawatts of nuclear power within the next 30 years. Conventional large-scale reactors, apart from those with small modular reactors, maybe with a 5,000 megawatt of small reactor module, will develop this. Energy efficiency, as you all know, is right in the core of energy transformation, and in all sectors of economy, in all areas of daily life, it impacts us. And in a very brief period of time, we finished the work, but probably in January we'll be announcing Energy Efficiency National Action Plan 2024-2030. This program will be launched next month. Throughout this program, now, I don't want to announce anything beforehand, but let me share the following, because we're talking about climate. 2024-2030 Energy Efficiency Plan. Within this scope, Turkey will reduce carbon emissions by 100 million tons. As I said at the outset, the share of electricity is increasing and the need for power. Until 2035, within the scope of the national plan, a 5 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity will be commissioned, green hydrogen. And again, in our country, there is a 3.5% of hydrogen natural gas mix. A hydrogen value chain will be established to compete with developed countries, and we're waiting Boranja's work, especially in the production of green hydrogen. Our country's renewable energy capacity and potential will be playing a key role. Therefore, the local industry, its development, for increasing employment and for rendering our country competitive, we think this is important. In energy for Turkey, Turkey has been a reliable transit country, but apart from being a reliable transit country and beyond that, we want to be a core country within the framework of our own national interests. We're working. In this sense, a rational, firm, robust policies are being developed, and as has been so far from now on as well, both in our region, especially in Europe, but in global energy supply security, we will continue to contribute. And again, one more time, I'd like to share with you and the public important development. One of the most important tools of fighting against climate crisis is carbon pricing. Emission commerce will be implemented next year. Thank you, distinguished guests. This is the 15th of Istanbul International Energy and Climate Center. Really, the fact that these types of programs are sustainable in Turkey is very valuable. Thank you very much for organizing this program. To the President of the Founding Board of Trustees of Sabancı University, thank you, all professors, all Mr. President, and our dear friend Fatih Birol, all academicians, researchers, and of course, all representatives of the public and private sector. I would like to thank them. I would like to wish them success in their work. One more time, I greet all of you with love and respect. Thank you very much. Mr. Minister, thank you very much for your speech. May I ask you to stay on the stage for a few more minutes? We'll have a family photo. May I invite the protocol, at the same time, Deputy Minister, General Managers of the Ministry, and Presidents, please, for this family photo.
Teşekkür ederiz Sayın Bakan. Çok sağ olun. Sayın Bakanımız salon.
Mr. Minister is leaving the hall. We'd like to thank him and say goodbye to him. Curious to hear? Sabancı University, Istanbul International Energy and Climate Center, IICEC, IICEC Turkey Green Energy Future 2023 launch. Bora Şekip Güray is at the podium. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Again, we're here with huge interest. Speaking after Fatih Bey and Mr. Minister is no easy task, and there's a very strong panel right afterwards. So, without further ado, I will relate to you the main findings of Türkiye green hydrogen future. Of course, it's become a tradition as a result of these analyses and modeling to the public, private sector, and academy, and to other stakeholders. We'll be having some suggestions, and then I'll conclude. With the vision and support of Fatih Bey, Turkey energy landscape. This is the third study after those. This study, of course, its basic logic is a more reliable and cleaner energy future to contribute to it. And green hydrogen is just one of those areas, especially Fatih Bey underlined this in his speech. In Turkey, we too heard this from the stakeholders. Carbon adjustment at the border and what it means for our industrialists, especially we will not be able to decarbonize through electricity. Hard to abate sectors, how to benefit from green hydrogen, how to transform risks into opportunities. This is what this study focused on. Of course, we have our strengths as a country, advantages. The minister underlined those as well. Strong renewable energy potential. If we're going to come up with green hydrogen, solar and wind will be critical here. As I said, high energy demand, especially high demand increase in those hard to abate sectors, means there's appetite. So the supply side has a high potential. We have policy targets, strategies. The minister talked about these. By 2035, 5,000 megawatts of electrolyzer capacity, all the way up to 70 megawatts, as we see. It's quite an ambitious target. These targets, how they're reflected on our work, on our analyses, I'll be sharing these with you soon. And for us, another strong side is our proximity to Europe. Market structure-wise, but especially physically, geographical proximity. We know that Europe has a high demand for green hydrogen. There's appetite, and the need to export will continue to increase. So while doing this work, of course, we looked at the needs of our own sectors, but excess production, could it be sent towards Europe? And could we create additional value from that as a country? Economic value and also some strategic values for developing collaboration. We looked into that as well. And multidimensional opportunities. There is a lot more to these, but Fatih Bey, within the vision he drew for us, energy security. Fatih Bey and Mr. Minister talked about these. In energy supply, the diversification should increase and import will come down. Greenhouse gas emissions, their reduction together with supply security, these are critical priorities. And of course, with our development plan and with our national energy plan, together with the direction of the sector, technological development,
büyümenin sonucunda gelişebilecek.
Ecosystem will take hold and grow. Now, rapidly, I will talk about results in a couple of sentences. Electrolyzer capacity as of 2030 is starting to grow rapidly. These are official targets of our ministry, 2030, 35, 2053, 70,000 megawatt, and if 50,000 of electrolyzer capacity, if we can have that in 2050, 5.5 billion tons of green hydrogen production will be achieved. Of course, there will be some technical economic analyses behind this. So where would this take us in the world? We know in world energy consumption, world energy, Turkey has a share of 1%. If these targets are fulfilled and if we produce as much by 2050 in the green hydrogen market in the world, dividing this into electrolyzer capacity of production will account for 1.5 or 2%. A newly developing sector, instead of 1% having a share of 2%, it will be a positive development. Of course, to a great extent, this will require electricity input. We looked at that as well. And the big demand, electrification will be stronger, but gross demand, 19% of it by 2050 will be required to feed this capacity. As installed capacity, this will be 90 or 100 gigawatts of renewable capacity just for the production of green hydrogen. It needs to be installed and operated. Of course, economy, we know green hydrogen is expensive compared to what? Compared to natural gas and traditional gray hydrogen. Of course, technology may introduce certain opportunities as cost reductions, but electricity input is one of the most important components of green hydrogen. If it will remain in 60% in the coming years, the share of electricity share. So any reduction in cost of electricity will accelerate the reduction of the cost of green hydrogen. Within the next 15 to 20 years, green hydrogen will be more competitive with other alternatives. The development of demand, you'll see the details, but especially in industry and buildings, transportation, we'll see strong demand, especially in industry and demand will constitute 90% of the total demand. Whereas green hydrogen in the total demand by 2050, it will be 6% of our ultimate energy demand. Electricity will be around 50%. The net zero study around the world, close to the world average. They're 8%. For Turkey, it's 6%. That's the figure that we foresee.
Bakan Bey iki öncelikten
The minister mentioned two priorities. One is related to the reduction of importation and dependency of fossil fuels. Of course, we can take a look at the ways and means of reduction and where does the greenhouse gas come from. Current consumption actually may be reduced. For emissions, this is three and a half times of savings. Of course, the monetary equivalent of that is more meaningful and it stays more on our minds. In a cumulative manner, the savings will, by the year 2050, will bring $55 billion in real terms, with the dollar of this year or last year. And on a sectoral basis, we see, of course, that still has a big share, and other industrial sectors and road transportation to be followed by aviation sector and marine sector. These sectors actually form 75% of the demands and will benefit from the savings with a proportion of 3 out of 4. So there's of course an expense side to it. What would be the expense of the investments? On the one hand, for power generation, we need investments. Electrolyzers will require investments, and of course, infrastructure will require investments. $3.5 billion of savings may be ensured with $3 billion of investments. So 1.2 will be the multiplier by the year 2050. So 20% of economic gain about investments in the long run because of environment-friendly products, as Birol Bey said, Mr. Birol. If we take the steps, the right steps in the long run, this multiplier will be coming back to 2.4 benefit financial benefit. After all these analysis, of course, we have suggestions. This year, we have compiled our suggestions under 7 headings. That was the case last year. Let me quickly mention those. The first suggestion is, this was similar in other projects of ours as well. We have some policy targets and roadmaps have to be prepared in a collaborative manner, including the private sector, public sector, and also the academia. And to ensure an efficient growth, we have to prioritize certain regions and sectors. The second suggestion is to focus on infrastructure, both legislative-wise and technical-wise, and resources have to be used in an optimal manner. Security and safety have to be ensured. And number 3 is about foreseeable markets. Of course, electricity, carbon, and natural gas developments have to be considered. The fourth suggestion is about electrolyzers, storage, and also cells, fuel cells. Suggestion number 5 is about the empowerment of international and regional collaborations. Number 6 is sustainability at a large scale. It's not only renewable sources, but water and green hydrogen, use of water, supply chain, critical resources. So at a large scale, sustainability has to be foreseen. Our last suggestion is maybe valid for all of them. Growth and competition have to be supported by qualified human resources. Human resources has to be developed, retained, and empowered, and this has to be supported by a strong entrepreneurship ecosystem. The QR code you see on the screen, if you can scan it, you will have access to our website where you can find our analysis, our report, executive summary, and the presentation I have just shared with you. I have a special word of thanks. I know there's only limited time left, but as we conducted this report, we received great support from experts. I see many of them in the room. I'd like to thank them all for their suggestions, for their minds and support. I also would like to extend my special thanks to the board at IICEC for creating the vision. Thank you and regards. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Güray. We would like to thank you. And now we continue with our panel discussion. Let's start on with our panel discussion. The moderator of this panel discussion will be Mr. Kıvanç Zaimler, who is the energy group lead at Sabancı Holding. Let me invite our panelists, Mr. Sinan Ak, CEO at Zorlu Energy, Ali Haydar Bozkurt, CEO and Chairman of the Board at LG Toyota Turkey, Ms. Ayşe Berris Ekinci, Her Excellency, Ambassador and General Manager at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, General Directorate of Energy and Environment, Elçin İbadov, CEO of Sokar Turkey, Tümkan Işıltan, who is the country manager at BP Turkey, and Semra Kuran, member of the board at ING Turkey. Now I'd like to leave the floor to you. Mr. Zaimler, you have the floor as the moderator. I also would like to greet you all cordially. Of course, the opening speech made by Ms. Sabancı and the Horizon Tour of Mr. Fatih Birol and all the items and important elements presented by the minister. Well, everything has been said, so I was wondering what we are going to discuss. But then again, we have such a valuable panel here. It's not only the energy sector. We have crude oil, finance, geopolitical representation, finances being represented, consumption, industry, e-mobility, all represented at this panel discussion. Considering the time limit that we have, I would like to ensure that we have a dynamic format. I'm not going to make an introductory remarks. Maybe from time to time I may make a summary of the things discussed. But then again, we hear of a crisis which is more severe than the oil crisis back in 1973. There is multiple polarization, and these topics seem to be the main themes for energy conferences. So in this framework, I would like to start with you, Your Excellency, Beris Ekinci. I'm sorry, says the moderator, Beris Ekinci, Her Excellency, is our ambassador and general manager at the General Directorate of Energy and Environment. I thought we would discuss these two things separately, but maybe we should do it jointly, whatever is going on in the world, multipolarization. So let's hear from Her Excellency Beris Hanım. Thank you very much. I would first of all like to thank you, and I would like to thank Sabancı University for the invitation. Actually, this was mentioned in the morning session as well. Geopolitical developments are directly having implications on the energy sector. One of the reflections of that actually is the ambiguity and the uncertainty. Turkey has a geopolitical status. The same rule applies to energy. And within the framework of this, in the north, we have Russian-Ukrainian war. In the south, we see the Middle Eastern developments and attacks on Gaza. But these are the hot wars. And we also have around us, since 2003 and onwards, we have the developments in Iraq, and we have more than 10 years an ongoing war in Syria. Another important source in the world of energy, Iran is also confronted with sanctions, and we should not neglect any of this, because in light of all this, energy supply security has to be ensured. The developments in Gaza has repercussions on the developments to be undertaken in the Mediterranean basin. So all these ambiguities and uncertainties, both in natural gas and oil sectors and markets, have repercussions. Oil prices are fluctuating. We are to witness that. On the one hand, considering the elections climate, and in order to oppress or in order to put pressure on inflation, they are taking certain steps and making maneuvers. And on the other hand, we have OPEC plus countries, Saudi to start with, have on a voluntary basis, Saudi is to make cuts in order to put some pressure on the price fluctuations. And relatively speaking, I can say that this is a recent development. The Houthis in Yemen, as a reaction to the war ongoing in Gaza, are attacking the oil tankers, and procurement through the Red Sea is now interrupted, and it equals to 10% of the procurement, and it's 8% for LNG. I'd like to underline that. So here, if there is going to be a change in route, this is naturally going to have an impact on energy prices. And then there are sanctions towards Russian Federation, base price for crude oil. All of these have an impact on the prices. As for natural gas, actually here, when we consider the developments, this was mentioned as well, Europe has been disconnected from the Russian natural gas. It is a sanction on Russian Federation, but then again, some steps taken by Europe and G7 countries of Europe have taken some steps and have applied some sanctions. And Russian Federation in return imposes that the payments are to be made in rubles, and the southern Mediterranean line is unoperational. Some critical changes have taken place, so natural gas supply to Europe has been reduced significantly. By the way, the reduction is in the pipeline gas, but in 2022, or rather in the post-war period, LNG importation of Europe has increased by 40%, and that's from Russia, and we have to take that into consideration as well. And on the other hand, of course, we have COP28 or net zero decisions. Within the framework of this, Europe is undertaking some policies, including Turkey in this scope. So, as for the implications on Turkey, actually, as we consider Russian-Ukrainian war, Turkey has been spending an effort for the diversification of energy resources. When compared with European countries, Turkey is tackling with this problem in a better fashion than many European countries, because LNG has been included in the portfolio for very many years. 5 LNG infrastructures are available here as well, and on the other hand, we have from different countries supply, at least an opportunity to get supply. In 2022, for instance, 15 different resources have been used for gas and LNG. Plus, an important point is that along with this crisis, Turkey has become the energy supply security player. Turkey has disclosed her role to play a significant role. Turkey contributed to the supply security of European countries, especially Southeast and Central European countries, and a roadmap has been initiated. So this crisis in one sense is to offer some opportunities as well for the future. I mean, for the time being, I can finish here. Thank you very much. You made a great summary. Uncertainty and foreseeability. Foreseeability is limited, uncertainty is plenty. It's quite interesting that you refer to the Red Sea, and Russia is like the elephant in the room, as the saying goes. Turkey may benefit from this as an opportunity. Storage pipelines with NSID, Turkey may be advantages. So those are my conclusions. Now over to you, Sinan Bey. Sinan Ak is the CEO at Zorlu Energy. Back in 1931, Thomas Edison had said the following to Henry Ford: I would invest in solar and wind. Hopefully we won't need to wait until coal finishes and oil finishes. I don't know whether this is accurate or not. I don't know whether this was made up or not. But then again, regarding the development of renewable energy, I'd like to hear from you what your thoughts are. You're an investor in Turkey and you are a part of the International Energy Plan, as Mr. Minister mentioned. This capacity will be enhanced up to 50,000, and we know that the potential is plenty. What would you like to say on that? Thank you very much. As this was mentioned many times during today's speeches, great vision has been presented. We have to turn our face towards China. That's quite obvious. Last May, we attended an exhibition there. It was the first time after the pandemic. The previous one was 4 years ago, so there has been a tremendous change during the time in between. It was amazing, both for solar and for batteries. Technologies have developed immensely. The same rule applies to wind power. I can say that it was mind-blowing. All those changes were mind-blowing. As Fatih Bey mentioned, the main reason for that is the fear. In order to overcome the fear, people are to focus on things that are claimed to be impossible. So the biggest fear these days is lack of oil. So this is the one and only material or mine that China can't control, oil and gas. In order to, as they can't control it, they'd like to get away from it. Turkey also is in a similar situation. Even if we have petrol and gas discovered, we still are confronted with similar fears. The gas in Eastern Mediterranean, we attempted 3 times, and Mr. Minister would go to Israel and would have some talks, but because of the developments encountered, this has been suspended. So after all, Turkey is battling in a narrow domain. Although all around us we have rich resources, we have difficulty in having access. So rather than dreaming about accessibility, we should continue focusing on local resources. As Mr. Minister said, I was thrilled. 78,000 plus megawatts of capacity is available, but there are regulations, lack of capacity, lack of projects, financing, etc. All of these have been discussed previously. Now we're fed up with that. I think these will become no longer a problem. We do have projects. Regulation-wise, we started doing business in Europe, and after seeing the regulations in Europe, I can say that the regulations here in Turkey are fast and robust. I think finance was the one and only thing missing, but with the steps taken, this is contributing to the country, but still there's a way to go. But we started seeing the investments, and hopefully in the upcoming period we will have many more to follow. As this is being discussed quite frequently, okay, we'll invest in solar and wind, 70,000 megawatts, 3 times more times capacity. But in order to be able to do that, we need to focus on the batteries.
Dediğim gibi teknoloji olarak aslında Çin konuyu çözmüş.
Battery-wise, China has solved the situation. They don't discuss whether or not it's going to be anymore. They just look to see how much of the world they can share. What Turkey needs to do is how rapidly can we bring those factories to Turkey before others. We have to strategize for that. The faster we produce, it will be for ourselves and for Europe, because we have the possibility to sell. And the transfer of these batteries are no easy matter. Once you package them, ship them, and taking them all over the world from China is risky, dangerous. If one of them burns, everything on the ship burns. Therefore, it should be transported in a very secure manner. It's no easy job. But it's very important to be able to do that. And we as a country, our own production, plus for production for the neighboring countries, we have to put a target in this regard. 10,000s of megawatts of
megawattlık fabrika.
Potential we have. 5,000 megawatt factory, $2-3 billion. So it's a big opportunity, big employment opportunity. At the same time, of course, there will be a current surplus for the economy. And we have the metal of these batteries in our country. So in order to develop that, we need to improve the mining sector in the country as well. So finished in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Sinan Bey and I have been together on different platforms. For the first time, he was so hopeful, positive, and not because others are not hopeful. This was more positive than anything else so far. And I agree about the financing. We're going to come to financing with Semran'ım, but the transformation of renewable energy, we have the opportunities as other countries do, but relatively, when there's competition with China, our proximity to geography, technology, employment-wise, it's an important opportunity. I agree with that. Shall I go to e-mobility or industry from here? But we have to go upstream. I'll go to Akşin Bey, Akşin İbadov, Sokar, Türkiye CEO. They completed the arms, chairs, nobody's standing up. Especially in COP29 to be organized in Baku makes me happy. In COP28, there was a lot of representation from Turkey. Turkey being there, I think it's important. Also, I'm impatient to go to Baku. So, fossil-based raw material and products with raw crude oil, refinery, and petrochemical. Their place in all of this energy transformation and how it's reflected on Turkey. Thank you very much, first of all, for announcing the activity in Baku. We all know. In fact, as an Azeri citizen, I would like to invite everyone there. All together, we can sign good outcomes. Refinery and petrochemicals. Fatih Bey gave a very striking example about vehicles. While it was 1 to 25 3 years ago, it's now 1 out of 5, and in several years, 1 out of 2. Every one car sold out of 2 will be electrical. Such is the prediction. So we're going towards there. So naturally, to refinery products such as diesel and similar, such as LPG, products manufactured in the refineries, demand for them will be reduced, profitability will be reduced. But the important thing here is Sinan Bey talked about batteries, the presence of battery. As much as the location, the size of the battery is important. Relatively bigger means of transportation, train, ship, truck. Electrifying them, again, will take some time for humankind. And we have to make good use of this time so that these technologies can be manufactured at a greater momentum. For these to be transformed into scalable investment, we have to make time. On the other hand, of course, we have to focus on sustainable fuels, sustainable aircraft fuel. We're working on this. Hopefully soon we'll be coming up with our first product. Turkish Airlines, a source of pride for us all, because it's one of the most important airways in Europe. They will feel that pressure, I'm thinking, just like all other airlines. Transition to sustainable fuels. There will be an expectation on this part of Turkish Airlines and other airlines. That's where the demand is going. Sustainable refinery products. And of course, naturally, refineries and petrochemicals, the more integrated they are with one another, unfortunately, the isolated refineries and petrochemicals, the likelihood of them becoming successful in the future is declining, because refineries also give raw material to petrochemical, and raw materials should be sustainable. When we come to petrochemical side, the story is a bit different. In petrochemistry, when we look at sustainable energy resources, equipment-wise, solar panels, the blades of wind turbines, the batteries of electrical vehicles, what are these made of? They come from petrochemistry. So petrochemistry will still have some time. Its replacement so far is not that feasible. Of course, academically and in the R&Ds of companies, important work is being carried out. But our prediction is that it will go beyond 2035. It will be difficult to replace petrochemical products, even beyond 2035. Propylene and biopropylene here, there are important moves here, as SOCAR, and so is industry. Propylene, of 99% of it is from oil-based raw material. Only in 1% of its part there is no role for oil. So we need to have the transportation there, but it will take time. Thank you very much. Especially about petrochemistry. You've been very realistic and reflected the reality. It's important. I think here as well, advanced material technologies and energy transformation will take place together. I'd like to turn to Tümkan Bey from Upstream, BP Turkey Country Manager. I'll ask something very honestly. Electric energy in Turkey. I'm a professional of one of the biggest investors in Turkey. We have SWOT analyses, international oil giants under the name of integrated transformation. Will they be competition for us? Shall we view this as competition? I was careful sitting beside Ahmet Bey. I think rather than seeing as competition, you have to see us as a stakeholder, because we have to do this energy transformation all together. We're talking about a transformation of such scale that no company, no country by themselves can actually do this. Therefore, rather than competition, perhaps, it's making the world a better place and solving the climate crisis. So stakeholders collaborating is what I prefer to call it. Now, global transformation is what we talked about. Global scale, what's happening? Of course, Fatih Bey summarized so well, I don't know if there's anything much left for me. Maybe through the perspective of BP, I could say a few things. But before I go on to that, I'd like to say the following. You know, because it's the end of the year, we're all having end-of-year assessments in our companies. And in the past 2-3 years, my friends keep saying, again, another year with lots of uncertainties. And I keep telling them, well, maybe, friends, this is the new norm. We're living in a world with uncertainty. This is the new norm. So let's accept this and see whoever is going to be adapting the best to this uncertainty. They'll be the successful ones. I'd like to underline this. Now, global scale. Rapidly, our traditional BP Energy General Landscape Report. It's been updated in 2023. Again, 3 scenarios in this report, as always: accelerated net zero and new momentum. Accelerated and net zero are what-if scenarios. The emissions of the world, for this to be reduced 75% and 95%, what should the world do? New momentum scenario looks at the pace of energy transformation of the world. If we continue this as such, where will we be by 2050 is the question it asks. Emissions will only be reduced by 30%, is what our work shows. So it tells us that we need to do something different from what we're doing today. 2 important developments in this year's report. One is Russia-Ukraine war. The other one is USA, inflation reduction. Russia-Ukraine war is important in that before this war, the world was focused more on low carbon, net zero, but with this war, the energy trilemma came back. Trilemma, and what is that? Energy security, accessible costs, and also renewable and low carbon energy. As the minister has also said, in a smart transformation, maybe both of these pillars need to be solved. We can't sustain this with one pillar only. It's obvious. And going back to the scenario, really, in none of these scenarios, we don't expect any of them to happen one-on-one. So why are we using these scenarios, you may ask? The purpose of these scenarios is to find the common areas and differences and to strategize accordingly. And within the framework of these strategies, with the volatility that we expect, to come up with roadmaps that will be successful regardless. So, 4 common trends here. First, as Fatih Bey said, hydrocarbons. In modern history, they're being reduced. Second, again, renewable energy is rising like nothing before that. Electrification is in our lives, and as is the case in the hydrogen report, low carbon hydrogen and its increased utility, because in some sectors electrification is not quite possible. So within this framework, the thing that BP is trying to do is, in fact, the and strategy, not or strategy. It means there's this energy the world needs right now, we have to supply it, and we have a responsibility to supply this energy, we think. But at the same time, as or, we have to invest in the transformation of energy for the future, especially in renewable and low carbon, other technologies, hydrogens. This is how we should approach those. Last, while doing all of these, here's what we should be careful about. Well, in climate crisis, we should not be causing a new one while solving one climate problem. So all sustainability matrices in companies are important, and the transformation should be done on a global scale. Thank you. I would like to thank you. The and not or. I think that's important. That collaboration of stakeholders, private sector, academy, public triangle, these are all important everywhere. In fact, one thing you said about the speech, the Inflation Reduction Act in the US. We're investing in America as well, and the Europeans have a different perspective. Renewable energy transformation incentivizing award, like it's more important than the penalizing attitude of Europe. Financing, etc., are important, but all these permits being obtained is a very important problem. In Turkey, we commission every 5-6 years a renewable energy facility. So incentives are influential. Yes, Ali Haydar Bozkurt, ALG, Toyota, President of the Board and CEO. Now, automotive is undergoing transformation in itself. In transformation, transportation and mobility plays an important role. At the same time, automotive industry is an important electricity consumer. How will this mobility be transformed in around the world, and how will this reflect on Turkey? There is an automotive industry of 100 years. This is like a revolutionary transformation that what we're witnessing. Internal combustion engines, we're moving away from them, and what we call electrification. We are going towards these technologies. Why did we prefer electrification? Apart from fully electrical vehicles, hybrid technologies, plug-in technologies, in fact, hydrogen fuel technologies. Because it covers all of these, I prefer electrification, because overnight, in one step, we cannot transition to fully electrical vehicles, because around the world as well, it's been worked on for a long time. And when you assess it 360 degrees, it's not just the car being transformed to electrical. When we understand this is not sufficient, the big picture emerges, which says it's not enough to electrify this vehicle. You have to make the energy that you charge the car with environmentalist, and that's not enough. You should think about the recyclability of this vehicle at the end of its life, the batteries, that is, and you cannot solve the problem by just limiting it on the vehicle. You have to make your factory clean 360 degrees. The logistic as well. Thousands of spare parts produced by a supplier will also be clean, and also the trailers that ship you these parts, they will be clean as well. They want 100% cleanness. So when we consider what needs to be done, then we say this will not happen overnight. However, again, unavoidably now, that's where we're headed. Now, many things around the world, let's not talk about this now. You know many of these things. Let's talk about all our own problems in Turkey. Of course, while preparing for this, the transformation was the problem for the manufacturers, those who manufacture the mobility, world brands. It's their problem. So what is up to us? We have to prepare the infrastructure for this. And when we say infrastructure, when we put in the charge devices, it's solved, people think, but not so. When you install sufficient charge devices, and when you connect to charge a certain number of vehicles, the transformers explode. It's not enough to replace them. The cables, I think you call it grid, right? Energy people know the jargon. So the cable infrastructure needs to be replaced, but that's not enough. For instance, imagine a 5-10-story apartment building you're living in, all type of apartment. When you come home, you park your vehicle on the pavement. How can you charge your vehicle? So we should review city planning, urban planning as well. And when you look at it, we have too much homework. That's one side of the business, but that's where the business is heading, step by step. Since we can't create from scratch, things will happen as we get going, but on the one hand, we have to incentivize these things because we're talking about expensive technologies. Electrical vehicle is really more expensive compared with conventional technologies. It will cheapen over time, as you have experienced in solar panels, but today, all over the world, if it's not incentivized, let me tell you this. This is not specific to us. All over the world, if it's not incentivized, nobody will get 1 cent more from their pockets and buy environmentalist technology. You have to incentivize this. How so? First, of course, tax reductions. In some parking lots, they may not pay reductions on highways, etc. There are lots of practices. Over time, that is not easy. Sanctions come about. You will not be able to enter the city center. You will not be able to pass this bridge. Unfortunately, as humankind, I think Tolstoy has said something. Everybody is trying to change the world, but nobody tries to change themselves. So, first, the difficulty of the homework starts at that point. We're going to be experiencing this. We're going to be lagging a bit behind, I'm thinking. We'll be more of a follower, I think. But all vehicles, well, the majority of the sold regions, even if vehicles, if they are electrical, there are 28 million vehicles in the traffic every year, and 1 million is added on top every year. 20, 30 more years, these will be in use. So considering that, gas pumps, gas stations We will still be needing them for a while.
Süreyi biraz açtım bir.
I think I have gone beyond my time by 1 minute. I'm sorry, I could only wrap up by doing so. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Well, 30 years, you say? 30 years. Okay. Well, there's also the Turkey factor. Every 3 years, people change their vehicles, but here it's every 20 years that people change their cars because they try to drive them as much as they can. It's an industry of 100 years, and you have told us about the whole life cycle of this industry. I agree with you, incentivizing and limitation. Policymakers actually are here, so strategy wise, we have our ministry as well. I suppose in this system, we need to incentivize people more. This transformation is extremely expensive. People are talking about trillions of dollars, billions of dollars, trillion of dollars, but still, last year's COP in Sharm el-Sheikh was impact on climate, loss climate fund, and this year they have even put a figure to it. I make a claim, if we collect the money, all the ones here in this room, if we collect all that money, we would sum up the same amount of money. I mean, that was such a funny amount of money. So is this realistic? That's a question mark. Now I'd like to come to the financial dimension. We have Semra Kuran, a member of the board at ING Turkey. What are the developments on a global scale? Turkish companies, Turkish investors, when we go, we see lists, but are we going to be confronted with long lists of sanctions? What will happen? What's the expectation? Yes, of course, we started with figures. I don't want to suffocate you with figures either. But then again, the money we spent on SDGs and the money that we have to pay has a difference of $3.9 trillion. This is OECD numbers. Of course, there's huge requirement for finances, but then again, I don't think that finances are scarce because the economic system that we are in has to be transformed into a sustainable, environmentally sustainable system, and the success criterion will be related to the following. There's a critical time pressure applied by the climate, so we need to balance things off. And of course, finances are extremely important, but then again, we have to make sure that we do the steering smartly so that we can have access to resources. During COP28, so many commitments have been made, and the appetite of the banks is also available. It's not, of course, the banks only that would invest, but when you take a look at the details, you'll see that increases have gained impetus. European and American banks until 2030 committed for 15 trillion euros of a commitment. $10 billion belong to the European banks. Europe is leading the way. We see that as a fact. Commitments are great, but what about the realization? When we take a look at it, we see that until 2022, both the credit market and also the bonds market, we see that because of the macroeconomic conditions, increasing interest rates will not offer a positive investment environment. There is a drop when we compare September to September. We see a seasonal drop of 40%, especially shrinkages by 60% when it comes to loans. And greenwashing is one of the reasons for that. To avoid greenwashing, new legislation foresees that finance institutions are even more diligent. So there is a significant drop. So when we come to the energy sector, the picture is positive. There's still growth, especially with green credits. That's good news, one of the good news. From the investor's perspective, from the perspective of the bank, we can talk about two different sorts of loans. One is for new technologies, infrastructures, and the other one is more for energy consumption, energy efficiency. And in the second type, products are ready. The market is functional, so resources wouldn't be an issue. As this was mentioned before, when you go to the consumer side, you do not want to pay an extra cost. So the financing of this fund has to be afforded. When you take a look at large-scale projects, there are two things that you have to handle. One is just like solar and wind power, investing in these already known and recognized sectors. That's already in place, and there is also the opportunity to invest in new areas. There's still a long way to go. For the private sector and for the banks, we feel that support should come from the public sector. So there are these three pillars. Namely, the first pillar is scale. It's impossible for a financer to afford it all because finances wouldn't suffice, especially with new technologies. We need to have some support mechanisms like award and punishment. This should be in line and parallel to the policies of the country. As I've said, capital investors will also have to take a certain position. Initial buyers have to be in place. So there is a multilateral thing here, and that may only be a result with a strategic solution. They're not only the financiers, but they are at the same time part of the struggle. The second pillar is long term. It's a new norm, but as the payment term increases, the ambiguities have to be managed properly. Here we have our banks. In order for the banks to manage properly, incentives always play an important role. New technologies also have certain risks. Strategic partnerships have to be considered as shares are allocated, and that has to be done especially. A multilateral coordination is required. When that's available, things work fine. I'd like to give you an example quickly, if I may. It's quite depictive. As ING on a global scale, H2 Green Steel is a project. This is steel production, which is way greener and more environment friendly. A multilateral structure is in this. This structure took quite some time to be established. You need to have financial information, you need to have sectoral experience, and you need to listen to the story to create this. And after establishing it, it's quite a pleasure to see that it functions properly. This is doable, and banks are like consultants or advisors. And it's not only enough to have a green project, you also have to make sure that the owners that represent the companies have to have clear scorecards, and net zero targets have to be based on science, new technologies, plus these. So when you add the others, it makes a perfect triangle, and there are so many exciting projects. I think it's going to accelerate in the future. Great, thank you. Good news is that growth will continue, companies will continue to grow, and sustainability will be an important function. And we will hopefully have access to finances. International action plans are important. Companies have to make commitments. I am aiming to finish by 50 past, 12:50. We have 9 minutes left. Shall we make 3 more rounds? You don't believe me? Well, no one believes in these commitments. Napoleon. Well, I saw Fatih Birol in Dubai and asked him what will happen. Everyone is making commitments. They are making commitments, but they do not have any sanctions. He said that Napoleon has this saying, if you'd like to be successful, make commitments and never fulfill them. Well, the energy sector will be an exception. One single word. Okay, let's continue with you, Sinan Bey. The biggest challenge that energy transformation is confronted with. Well, transformation in itself is a challenge. Don't know. Ali Aydar? Geopolitical difficulties. Beris Hanım, I was expecting to say this. What would you say? Finance, technology, and access to technologies. Storage of wind and solar power. It's not possible to proceed with storage. Sinan Bey is now finding some supporters. Tümkan Bey? Fulfillment of the 3 pillars and ensuring that socioeconomic factors kick in to ensure transformation. Semra Hanım, consolidation. Let me elaborate. I mean, we set a target, but there's a price to pay. There are some financial and non-financial implications. If we can overcome that, I wish we had them reflected on the screen. My second question. Edison once said that I wouldn't want to invent anything which is not to be sold. It is a proof of achievement. So taking this as the starting point, you decide on the time frame, either 5 years or 50 years. What do you think will be the biggest disruptive technology of the future? Starting from you, Semra Hanım. Energy demand will be multiplied by 3 times in the next 50 years. We need some game changers. I am impressed with the fusion. Maybe without disrupting the world, we may retain it. Bravo. Yes, we as Climate Technologies of Sabancı, we invest in fusion technologies. Tümkan Bey, AI. Elçin Bey? Only 7% of plastic is circular, so we should make sure it's 100% circular. Otherwise, we discard billions of dollars, so at least 54% of plastic should be circular. Currently, it's only 7%. Bora Bey, interesting notes are made. Right after the panel discussion, we have to focus on this. Beris Hanım, AI, I would say, along with all its dangers and opportunities. Fusion energy. Okay? Robots are coming. I don't know whether you checked it. Tesla's next focus is on robots. It may change the whole approach in the factories. So we still have 5 minutes to go. 5 more minutes to go. Last round. Beris Hanım, let's start with you. We made a promise that everyone will make it to lunch. We will continue with IICEC board meeting anyway. Do you think Turkey will become a hub? Well, for the last 20 years this is being discussed. Energy policies of Turkey, supply security, infrastructure, LNG terminals, inlets and outlets, diversification of outlets and inlets. Storage capacity has to be enhanced. Nuclear is to be included. Hydrogen has been discussed. Bora Bey made a summary. And within the framework of hydrogen, Turkey may become a hub. Yes, Turkey may become a hub, but still we still have a lot of homework to do. And in this context, in order for this to happen, we need, between the public institutions and between public and private institutions, collaboration requirement. Thank you. During Alparslan Bey's speech, during the speech of the distinguished minister, he did not mention lignite or coal, net zero, nuclear, hydrogen. He referred to everything but not lignite. Are we going to take the elephant out from the room or will it stay? Sinan Bey? He didn't say it, but he meant it. So let's make things local, he said, but it holds certain things. We thought it would be. Well, of course, he can always take the floor. Of course, we are behind what Mr. Minister said, but I also believe that developing countries have the right to further develop. Well, local coal should not be developed. I mean, I used to say that 5 years ago. But then again, we saw that these fears of ours that have been formulated recently, have been proven right. In the following period, in this transformation, if we are unable to maximize the prices of other resources, we will continue with coal. It's free. Yeah, everyone is free from now on. So let me now touch upon the automotive dimension. Well, this transformation of 100 years, we are witnessing the centennial transformation. Of course, this is beyond our commercial concerns. Let me finish by referring to the benefit of Turkey. As you know, in this transformation, China became an important actor in our sector, but on a global scale, they have to make it to the European market. They can't make it from where they are. They know it themselves. So right now, Turkey is in a great opportunistic position. The ecosystem is ready. Our quality is great. And it's not only the automotive industry, it's for many industries, blue-collar engineering quality, blue-collar quality. We have to get this, just like it happens in Turkey, the first Chinese player we have to capture, because you either get the first one or you become a follower. So we have to catch that first Chinese and have him or her manufacture here. No, I'm talking about the automotive industry. If we can get them here to do their manufacturing, then the rest will follow, because 90% of the things produced are being exported, and we are suffering from current deficit. So it's going to be a great opportunity. Elçin Bey, I'm sorry, I have 2 minutes delay. As the president of a basketball club where playing in the Super League, I'd like to make an analogy. As you know, in basketball, you don't always continue with defense only. You have to attack from time to time. So as a part of this analogy, as we consider our market, okay, we are going to have an attack. We are going to undertake this transformation. That's inevitable. But how are we going to embrace the current demand? If we have interruptions in the market, where will humanity go? We have to consider that as well, because that's where the demand is. Petrochemicals, energy, we shouldn't forget that. We should address that as well, and we should always keep attack on our agenda.
Bir de gerçeklerle
I love this analogy. So you're making us face the facts. Thank you, Chimkambe. We should not be desperate, but we still have a lot to do. We have to be aware of that reality as well. We have all the materials needed. All together, we have to bake the cake. Thank you. Money talks. Semranım, you have the last word. Well, it's lunchtime. Probably our glucose levels are running low. We have the flour and the sugar and the oil, but to what extent we're going to use each ingredient, we don't know. If we do this to taste, I think we'll be very successful. Hopefully we'll strike that balance very well for the good of our country. And With those 6 panelists, I think it is the fastest panel of IICEC history. Thank you for your patience, and hopefully you have taken key messages from all of this. Thank you on behalf of IICEC. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you very much to all panelists, speakers, you distinguished participants as well. We have come to the end of our activity. Thank you very much for your participation. Hopefully we'll have a happy, healthy 2024.